Hey, on my Travel Ones podcast, I'm lucky to have Greg Schwem. How are you today, Greg?
I'm great, Peter. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Greg is a business humorist. You're literally the first person I've ever heard describe themselves that way. I like that.
Yeah.
An author.
There's not a lot of us. There's not a lot of us out there. Yeah.
But you're an author. You're a stand-up comic. You've opened for acts like Celine Dion, Leann Rimes, Benatar.
Yep.
And you're a music T-shirt fan. So I kind of like that. You got your
a what? I'm sorry. I'm a what?
A music T-shirt fan. A band T-shirt
music
fan.
Band. Oh, you saw those? Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I became one when I created a keynote speech that where the theme is rock and roll. So I thought, well, I had to dress the part, which is weird because when you do corporate comedy, when you do corporate events, you always, you need to have it helps to have a sport coat and things like that. So when I was going out there doing shows in concert T-shirts and like black jeans, I felt like I was sort of breaking a rule or something like that. But it's been fun.
Because I saw the Van Halen and the Cheap Trick, so I was like, oh, okay. All right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Wait, and
I've got quite a collection now.
Your corporate gigs have got you to like companies like McDonald's, Microsoft, General Motors, United Airlines, Cisco.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're kind of big names.
Yeah. In fact, I just did a virtual event for Cisco. Yeah. That's it's nice, and it's nice when you do companies like that because they have a lot of divisions, and when they have a lot of divisions, that means all the different divisions have their own meetings, and you can kind of piggyback one off of another. So it's a nice little niche that I got myself into about 20 years ago, and I just stayed with it.
What do you think's made you successful as a business humorist, where others, I mean, you've focused on it, and I think others kind of do it to fill in the blanks.
Yeah. I think what's made me successful, well, a couple of things. Number one, I have a very clean act. I have a very harmless act. Always have. I've never believed in. I've always believed that people when they see a comedian, they just want to be entertained. They just want to laugh. They don't need to be challenged, and their beliefs don't need to be questioned, and they don't need to be ridiculed. I could get an argument from an awful lot of comedians who would say, well, those are three things you have to be doing if you want to be in this business. Well, that's fine. You can have your opinion. I have my opinion. So, so that's the first thing. And the second thing is I think why I succeeded in this is because I take the time to really learn about the organization and customize what I'm going to talk about for them. Because I've learned over the years that people really like to laugh at themselves. They might not admit that, but somebody from outside the organization comes in and says something about what they do, then they enjoy that. They enjoy laughing at something because they can't do it on a day-to-day basis, or they don't feel like they should be doing it.
Or if they do, they don't think other people will get the joke.
Right, or or their boss isn't going to think it's funny or something like that. So, and when I'll give you a great example. I mean, I'm coming. I'm doing a show, a virtual show tomorrow for Merrill Lynch. All right, and they sent me some stuff, and they sent me a PowerPoint presentation, and on every slide they have their slogan, which is "We're better when we're connected." And I just thought that seems like kind of a given. when you're a financial firm, like no one's really looking for a financial advisor. Go, what do you think of this guy? Oh, he's great. I haven't heard from him in 3 years. I love this guy. But I think that unless it's somebody from outside coming in and saying something like that, they don't quite. They would never make that connection.
They would not. Yeah.
They would never say, "Okay, that does sound kind of strange," even though they probably look at it every day.
How weird is it going to be for you to do the virtual?
Weird is a good word.
Yeah.
It is weird. It is weird to be telling jokes to your computer screen with a bunch of little squares on the side of the screen that represents your audience. I mean, comedians, and even you're hearing like the comedians that have their own talk shows, like Stephen Colbert and so forth. Stephen Colbert just actually said, I think on his show, how much he misses. He's just said he's going crazy not having a live audience.
Yeah.
And, I mean, obviously there's nothing you can do about it. So it's weird, but I got to tell you, Peter, I find it strangely gratifying in a way. And I'm not sure I can really explain that, but I just, when I'm doing it and I imagine people sitting at home because that's where they have to be. And if they're laughing, even if it's just one or two people laughing at what I'm saying, I just imagine them sitting in their home office, being entertained for a few minutes. And if I can do that, that's worth all the weirdness.
Well, yeah, and that's what you're there for, right? Make people laugh.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, when you do what we do, and I think any kind of entertainment, you kind of play with the hand you're dealt. I mean, when I was doing live shows, I will say in my writer, I don't want to start until all the dishes have been cleared from dinner. I don't want, we just tried how many people think, really? That's a problem. If we're not serving them chicken and steak in the middle of your show, that's an issue. And most times people oblige, but sometimes people don't. And if they don't, then it is what it is. You go on and you do the best job you can with what's in front of you. And my job is to make people laugh in whatever environment I'm given, or in this case, whatever environment I'm thrust into. That's what I'm going to do.
But heckling would be better, though, wouldn't it?
Virtual heckling?
Yeah, because you could just mute them.
You think? Yeah. Yeah.
Just hit the mute button.
No. Well, actually, it's weird because when somebody on a virtual call, when somebody talks, their image pops up like full screen.
Yeah.
So, it is better for me because now I got a much better look at them.
Yeah, it's not a dark room.
Random voice coming from a dark room.
Exactly.
But I will say something. Heckling in a corporate environment is pretty rare. I can probably count the number of times.
I was going to say, they better be the boss if they're going to heckle.
Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. People, there is an air of decorum that exists when you do corporate events. So it's kind of it's more of a safe audience, Although the weird thing is club comics don't have to work at 8:30 in the morning, which I often have to do.
Well, yeah, that's true.
I mean, sometimes they'll put me out, or they'll put me on and they're like, hey, we're starting at 8 and we thought we'd get you to kick it off and make sure that everybody's in a great mood and so forth. And, awake. Yeah. So I'm the awake. I'm the Starbucks of their day.
Exactly. As someone that's gone to many of those, it's appreciated.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's why I love what I do, because I know it's appreciated. I mean, people, when somebody like me walks on stage at a corporate event, it's not expected. And especially by people who've been going to these corporate meetings, year after year after year. Yeah. It's almost like they're almost a little bit jaded and almost immune to. It's like, okay, you go, and I know what's going to happen. The CEO is going to come out and he's going to talk, and then the VP of sales is going to come out and he's going to talk, and they're going to have a bunch of charts and PowerPoints and things like that. And then we're all going to get into private little groups and we're going to talk about how we can make this company better. And then there's me, a motivational speaker, who's going to scream at us for 90 minutes. and then, but in the middle of that, I walk out and they think, oh, now this is something a little bit refreshing.
It's a total change of pace.
Yeah.
Because we
get to laugh.
Imagine the Merrill Lynch conference without you.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
Come
That's
on.
Exactly right. Imagine it without me. That should be that should just be my theme. I think you just wrote my new theme. Imagine your event without me. I think we're done here, Peter. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that was great. And just go ahead and bill me for that.
No.
Imagine your event without me.
That's a freebie.
Maybe I should put me in capital letters. Yeah.
Absolutely. I like it. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's got a nice ring to it. Quick, it's snappy. It would fit on a button that I could throw out to the audience.
I don't know if the event planners for those companies would appreciate that, but
maybe not.
Because they think they did a great job.
I know they do. They always, event planners always think that if I killed, it's because of them.
Yeah, my sister's an event planner for a corporate company.
Yeah.
She's always telling me how much effort and
give her
energy.
my condolences.
Exactly.
Give her my condolences for that's an awful job. It's a great job while the event's not happening.
It's a medical device company, and I'm like, oh, God.
Oh, wow. What's the name of the company?
Oh, God. You're going to make me look it up.
Oh, that's okay.
It's they're in Santa Barbara. They make a robot that will go out and so like if you're in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and you don't have a heart surgeon on staff, this robot will be in the room, and a heart surgeon in Chicago or LA looks at it and tells the doctor what's going on.
Oh, wow.
It's all remote.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Okay.
But let me
Yeah. Okay. That one does not sound familiar because I've done some shows for medical device companies, but a virtual robot is not that doesn't pop up. I think I remember writing material about that.
In Touch Health.
In Touch Health. I vaguely heard of the company.
Yeah. So that's
another thing about doing what I do. It's very educational.
Well, I was going to say,
I've learned so much about so many different organizations and so many different industries.
Well, I think that's honestly only because you do the research. A lot of people just show up and do their set.
Right. And you can, and the thing I've always said is that as a corporate audiences are not stupid. I mean, they can tell in minutes if you're just doing the same canned presentation. I make it very clear up front. I insert, I don't customize my whole show. I can't write 45 minutes about Merrill Lynch and deliver it to them. Not 45 good ones anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do just enough material, and I put up some of the customization very high up in the program, so they know that it's not your canned speech.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's very, it's kind of good business practice, but it's also very gratifying for me too when I can get them to kind of look up from their phones and say, "Hey, this guy knows about us."
Yeah. Well, I do the same thing. I try and do the same thing with my podcast. And one of the best things I love about my podcast is I get to talk to people from all walks of life, and that's something that interests me. So.
Yeah, but the fact that you mentioned my T-shirts, it shows that you obviously had gotten on the internet before we started this and read up a little bit about me and looked at some photos and things like that. And then kudos to you for that.
Well, that's why I was so excited to talk to you, because there's similarities. I mean, there are some comics that go up and they do their set, and that's what they do, and it doesn't matter if they're in Denver or the Comedy Store, or the Laugh Factory, or the Cellar, or wherever. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then there's other comics that, like yourself, that want to do more specific or specialized sets. So
yeah. I'm constantly tweaking. I'm not saying that. As I said, I've got kind of especially in the corporate world. One thing about doing what I do, it is a little bit more difficult to work on new material because you don't have, a comedy club is it's kind of a lab for most comedians. And it's set up to be that way, where you just, you have 2 shows a night, or, you doing 6 shows over the course of 2 days, and you can tinker and you can tweak a little bit. I have to I can't just go in there and try 10 new minutes at a corporate event. I have to very selectively drop in where I'm going to put new ideas in material.
Oh, that's true. You don't have a proving ground.
Mm-hmm. No, and I don't think I have the attention span either. I think people.
True.
Well, and I don't say that critically. I just
I know
more realistically. People in my audiences are still technically at work. They've got their phones with them. Most of my presentations take place during business hours. I'd say between 8 and 5. I don't do many evening shows. Most of my shows are morning, luncheons, late afternoon. And that's something I have to be aware of, is that people still are probably checking their email, things like that. And it used to bother me, and I realized that I can't let it bother me. I can't take that a sign of, oh, they're not liking me. Because I think they are. It's just that we're wired to always be connected.
Well, and as someone that's attended several conferences throughout my career, there's times when you don't want to be there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like, who wants to?
I hear you. And that's another reason. Let's put that slogan in. What's the slogan again? Oh, imagine your conference without me.
Exactly.
But I'll tell you what, the one thing I draw the line at, and this I will call people out on. I have seen people just come into like the conference room where I'm going to be, come in with a laptop and literally and open it up and just start working there. And that I've actually called people out on stage, not in a mean-spirited way, but just like, hey, why don't you put that down and laugh for a few minutes? But what I'm really saying to them is, if what's on that laptop is so important, and maybe it is, then you shouldn't be here. You should be up in your room. You should be up in your room finishing that project or out in the lobby or something, because clearly that's what you need to be doing. And I have found that I'm not background noise.
Yeah.
There's another good slogan. Greg Schwem.
I'm not just background
noise. Darn it!
I'm not just background noise.
Yeah, exactly. I've worked really hard on my set, and I'm here to entertain you and maybe motivate you. But if you're just gonna come in and whip out your laptop and just start staring at it and typing, then maybe you should go somewhere else.
Yeah, well, those are people that probably don't go to comedy clubs in the first place.
Yeah, maybe, or they're just very, very, or maybe just miss their deadline. don't have good time management skills.
All the above. Well, pre-COVID, how many events were you doing a year?
Probably about 50 or so. I'd say between 40 and 50. I don't like to. One thing about what I do, and obviously it takes a lot of preparation. I use visuals in my shows. I use PowerPoint.
Yeah.
I get on a conference call with a client and learn about them. And I put a lot of time into it. So I can't just sit there and just crank out show after show after show. Nor do I want to. So if I could do 4 months, which sounds like, for people listening to your podcast, like, wow, this guy works 4 hours a month. Where do I get? Sign me up for that job. There's more to it than that.
Well, yeah,
I'd like to make that clear.
I've had friends say that about my podcast.
There you go. Right. People don't realize, it's really, to go back to one of your questions about how were you able to succeed in this? I mean, I think that in any type of, when they call it show business, there's a big accent on the word business.
Yeah.
And a lot of, because it is a business and you have to run it like a business. And I've known so many really, really funny guys and girls over the years where you listen to their act, you're like, wow. I mean, why aren't they just huge? And I think part of it can be traced to they have no business sense or skills whatsoever. They just want to go up there at 9:30 at night and do 45 minutes, and that's the whole part of their day. And there's so much more to it than that. I mean, there's sales, there's marketing. I mean, you're a sales and marketing guy, and so you know that as well as anybody. But there's networking, and I'm fortunate that I kind of have a background. My background's in journalism. So, and as a journalist, you learn. There's an awful lot of skills you learn that really have benefited me in the comedy world, like networking with people, working the phones,
doing podcasts.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Right. Yeah. Selling yourself, being a little bit pushy and a little bit aggressive when I had to. And that's benefited me over the years.
Well, that's the part, like, I think a lot of people don't see, even like stand-up comics. I mean, I couldn't do that job. We go to my wife and I go to the Comedy Store when it's open, and we've seen a lot of bigger comics, and they'll bring up Judd Apatow shows up and wants to drop in, and he brings up his yellow pad and he goes, "Hey, I'm going to try out some new jokes tonight." And we're like, "All right." Mm-hmm. And that one sucked. Oh, that one bombed. Maybe. And we Ron Rob Schneider did that one time, and George Wallace we saw him in Hermosa, and and he brought out his notepad and he's working. But they get done at the comedy.
I don't get the notepad thing. I've never understood that, and that is a topic that comics will go back and forth about. I don't understand bringing out the notepad.
Well, now they use the phone.
Yeah, I don't understand. I guess my feeling is if you've waited all day to get up here, you should be able to memorize something. You should. Your
5-minute set. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe if you're up there doing an hour, if you're trying out new material, you're probably not doing an hour. You're probably doing, Judd Apatow probably comes up for 15 minutes or something like that. My feeling is you should be able to memorize or have a clue on 15 minutes. And I think a lot of comics think, well, it looks good. It looks like I'm just ripping off the top of my head here. But certainly, and maybe if you're a George Wallace or a Judd Apatow, you've earned the right to do whatever you want on stage. But I see new comics that are doing 7-minute sets and bring their notes up because they saw George Wallace doing it. I just want to shake them and go, no. Yeah, you gotta at least look prepared before you look cool.
We showed up to an amateur night at the Laugh Factory, and it was amateur night. So Dom Herrera was the host, and there was probably 8 unknown comics, and I think there was literally probably 12 people in the crowd, and we were all in the front row. It was a Wednesday or Tuesday night, and so the tickets are cheap. And we're let's go watch some comedy. We'll get some food while we're there and all that. And Dom goes, hey, got a friend that showed up. He wants to do some new material. Do you mind? Rob Schneider's going to do, if you guys don't mind. And we're like, no. And it was literally to 12 people. And he was cool. He was interacting with us, talking to us. He wasn't just doing a set. So that was neat.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a great thing about living in LA. You never know when somebody like that might show up.
Well, that's always the excitement. And that's why we tend to go during the week, because that's when guys want to just pop in. That's why Judd Apatow shows up. Yeah. You're like, holy shit.
And then Jay Leno's been working the Comedy and Magic Club in Hermosa for years. I mean, he's not a surprise guest anymore, but just the fact that Jay Leno, you could see Jay Leno every Sunday night at a club that seats. I've worked the Comedy and Magic Club before, and it seats maybe 250 people.
Well, he plays in the small room too. He doesn't play in the big room.
Yeah, so. And I mean that's great. And that he was working on stuff that you might hear on the Tonight Show 2 nights later.
He's still doing it. Yeah,
I know he does. Yeah.
So that is if you're going to live here, it's like not going to the beach. If you're going to pay the high rent, you might as well go to the beach.
Right.
If you're going to pay the high rent and deal with traffic, you might as well go see some comedy. Well, Bill Burr shows up, or Bert Kreischer, or we're going to have a drop-in set. And oh, okay. Whitney Cummings shows up for
Right, exactly.
So. Being gone 50, I know you have 2 daughters. Your youngest just graduated high school. Congrats.
Yep.
Been there, done that.
Yep. Thanks. Yep. You didn't see a virtual graduation though.
No.
you didn't experience that.
No.
Yeah.
And I've experienced it on every street around my house as I hear people honking as they're driving by to celebrate.
Oh, I know the parades.
Yeah.
It's a whole. The class of 2020 is. I mean, I tell my daughter, I go, 30, 40 years from now, you're going to just randomly tell somebody you were from the class of 2020, and even then, you're going to get looks. You're going to get that. Whoa. You survived that.
Yeah.
It's like when people say they're, I have a friend who was married on 9/11, not that 9/11,
but a 9/11,
a 9/11.
Yeah.
Still, I mean, you hear that, you're like, yeah.
That's a rough anniversary.
I see the class of 2020. I go, you have a badge of honor that you will carry around for the rest of your life.
My daughter's boyfriend graduated University of Maryland, and he did the virtual thing.
Yeah,
because he just graduated, and it's like, ugh.
Yeah, it's just weird and sad. It's sad that they didn't get to do that. I mean, you keep thinking maybe it's made them. All you can do is say to your kids, "Well, it's made you a stronger person," or whatever. All those dad things, those things that parents try to say to make their kids feel better.
Yeah,
it probably doesn't work.
Yeah,
but what else are we going to do?
Hey, I got a question for you since you're a dad of almost college-age student.
Mm-hmm.
At least in California, they just canceled at least the fall semester, so you're going to have to do virtual college.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still going to have to pay out-of-state tuition if your kid goes to...
Well, it is interesting. We're kind of on a whole different playing field here because my daughter is going to school in Virginia. She's on a volleyball scholarship, and she's going to William and Mary. And the whole not only were we on pins and needles, was there going to be school, but was there going to be sports as well?
Yeah.
Now, William and Mary is going back. The president of William and Mary was actually on 60 Minutes Sunday, and they were talking about what they were doing, and but I think my daughter's plan was, everything changes every day, but I think she was thinking if they weren't going to go back, if they were going to do virtual class, she was strongly considering taking a gap year because even if you do virtual, you're a student, you are enrolled, and that would be a year of athletic eligibility.
Yeah, exactly.
A sport that wasn't there.
Although I did just talk to Amanda Johansson on my podcast, and she's
volleyball player, right?
lacrosse player.
Lacrosse. Oh, I was not even close. Okay.
But she plays professionally now, but she also coaches at Hofstra. And she said that, and she told me that the seniors from Hofstra are given an additional year of eligibility to play, but since they missed their senior season.
Yeah,
they're going to be able to come back if they want to.
Discussed on like an individual basis, an individual school basis. So, Hofstra. It's interesting. My daughter was being recruited by Hofstra. We actually went and looked at that school last year.
My daughter's friend ended up playing lacrosse there. My daughter's played lacrosse, both of them, and
okay. Mm-hmm.
But I interviewed five or six volleyball players.
Okay, yeah. So you were supposed to have, you were, we got off the subject because I was talking about virtual graduation. Your question was, it started out as somebody who travels with two daughters.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. That was me who messed it up.
That's the problem I have when I start talking to people that are my age and have similar things in common.
Right.
How was it being gone that much while having daughters that were school age?
Yeah.
How did you balance that travel?
Well, it's interesting. I never felt that I was gone that much, to tell you the truth. I've met people in your business, in sales, who are gone way more than me. And the great thing about doing what I do is it was usually just out for a night and then back.
Hit and run,
And basically, because again, it goes back to the amount of time. I mean, I worked for an hour. So I would fly out, I would either, if my show was in the evening, I would fly out in the morning. I would do the show. I'd jump on a flight the next morning and be home. If my show was in the morning or a luncheon, I'd fly out the previous afternoon, and then fly home that evening. So a lot of times I was gone for just a little more than 24 hours. And the great thing is again, doing what I do, rarely did I work weekends. Again, most corporate meetings are in the Tuesday to Thursday realm. So even when they were growing up, I coached softball, and I don't feel like I missed out on an awful lot of things. And certainly, I would have missed out on more if I'd stayed with the club route, the comedy club route, when you're working every Friday night, every Saturday night. When you're gone Tuesday to Sunday doing clubs. At the time that I started doing comedy, most clubs were open 6-7 nights a week. And that was another thing. That was another reason that kind of turned me off on clubs. I just did not want to be gone that long. I like to travel, but I didn't like being in a town for 6 days working a comedy club. Yeah. And not having anything to do. So that was another reason when I discovered corporate events, and it
fit your lifestyle better.
For me. It did. And there's a lot of guys that don't. They love the club scene, and they love the late nights and sleeping until 2 p.m, or rolling out of bed and taking a shower, and it's showtime at 7:30. That was never me.
Well, I always thought I traveled a lot. I'm on road about 100 where I was until this, but about 110 to 120 days a year, and I thought that was a lot. until I start talking.
I think that's probably more than I've been on the road. But then, I mean, again, if I do 40 dates a year, that's probably 80 days on the road.
Yeah. But I talk to musicians, and I'm like, 250, 260, 270 days a year on the road.
Yeah.
Like,
that would get to be a grind. And I mean, I love what I do, and I love traveling. I love going to new places, and I love exploring them. But you spend enough time out there, and then it's really hard to say I'm enjoying this.
What's the furthest you've traveled for a gig?
For a comedy gig, let's see, Poland.
Ooh, okay.
I think. Yeah, I've been to Poland. I've done the gigs that I've done out of the country. Hawaii's pretty far.
Yeah, from you, yeah.
But out of the country, I've been to Paris. I've been to Poznan. I've been to Cusco, Peru for a show. And then those are always. I was in Vienna just this last fall for a date. So it always is nice to go internationally and just kind of see how your humor works overseas or how it doesn't work.
Well, I'm amazed people are listening to my show in all these countries that don't, I'm like, why are you listening? Okay.
Yeah, but I'm not going to ask questions. Thank you for your support.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird, but I don't know. Do you alter your comedy for that? Like if you go to Poland
for international audiences?
Yeah.
Well, yes and no. I found that obviously European audiences for sure are now. Some of those international dates were for American companies, like the one in Peru. That was an incentive trip. So their top salesmen got to fly over to Peru and climb Machu Picchu. But when I was on stage for them, they were all from America, so that doesn't really count. But like this one I did in Poland, they were it was for Microsoft, all right, but the audience was primarily Poles, Germans, and Brits, and I found that they told me ahead of time. They said if they're not laughing, it doesn't mean they don't like you. Which actually, I thought, wow, you talk about low expectations. I can only go up. I can only go up after hearing that. And, so every time I was, and I actually got some really strong laughs. I mean, I saw their point. There were jokes that missed their mark. But I got some really good laughs. And I mean, I came off stage and they looked at me like I was a god. So like, wow, they responded. That was we weren't expecting that. I found that using visuals helps in those and talking slower. Sure. I mean, all these meetings were conducted in English, but English is still the audience's second language, and you have to be. They're kind of translating as they're listening to you. So, and there's certain things they don't do. Like one thing I found out is like when I was in Vienna, and I'd been warned ahead of time, but some of the speakers that came out were not warned about this. About you don't come out and go, "Hey, how's everybody doing? Yeah. I can't hear you. How's everybody?" They hate that. Yeah, that's like a given. Over when you do shows in America. So, how's everybody doing? Oh, you can do better than that. European audience is like,
no, I can't.
Move on. Yeah, move on. We're doing fine, and you don't really need to know that. Yeah. So yeah, little tricks like that.
How has technology helped your business? I know it's kind of a loaded question.
I couldn't do what I do.
You did it 20 years ago.
Yeah, but still, you still had the internet 20 years ago. I mean, it wasn't as sophisticated, but I could never have gotten into this unless I was able to get online and learn about the company. I wouldn't be able to. I can get on a conference call with you and I can ask you what you do, but I need to have a lot more information than just you saying, well, we sell, high density voltage detectors for the space shuttle or whatever. I didn't know that exists, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, and the internet, when you get on a company's website, you immediately learn how to talk the talk. And when you can talk like they do, whether it's by looking at their message boards or their help desk, their online help desks, or just the descriptions of what they do or the products that they manufacture, it just sounds funny. It sounds funny. And to be able to just spit that right back at them I get more laughs based on that than anything that I could get on a conference call. Because, I think when I got a conference call with companies, they'll say, well, let me try and make this simple for you. Well, I don't really want you to make it simple.
Yeah, no.
I want you to make it as complex as you can, because that's what's funny. And I've always said one of my favorite audiences to work for is engineers. I love engineers. I just love listening to the way they talk, because it is just so garbled and full of techno babble. And and the great thing about engineers is they know it. They know it, and they can laugh at it. They're very good at, because I'll say engineers and people would say, oh, God, how could I know an engineer? He's the most boring guy I've ever met. How could you possibly say that's a great artist? Well, for the reasons I just said, they know that they act like that and that they talk like that. And when you can speak their language and kind of remind them of that, they eat it up. They eat it up. So that's why I said I once I found the internet and was able to, and I remember the first show that I really used imagery for. I remember this. I will actually tell you, there was actually a specific joke. Do you remember Jesse the Body Ventura?
Oh, yeah.
He became the governor of Minnesota. Out of the blue, Okay. So I was doing a show right after he became governor. It wasn't in Minnesota. It was in Maryland. It was for a company that made, it was a company that was working on the genome, mapping
wow.
genes, the human genome, the genomics project. So very, very high-end technical stuff. But I actually had come across on the web some graphics that showed how you split a genome. And I said, and I screenshotted them and I put them together and I said, so it starts with this and it starts with this and then it goes to this, and this. And I said, then as long as it's done correctly, you get this. And I put up a picture of Jesse Ventura and the audience just went nuts. And I thought, I'm onto something here. And that's when I said, I got to use visuals. I got to, as much as I can, use visuals in my show, because I just sort of hit on something like people in these environments, they like to not only hear about what they do, but they like to see it in a funny way.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, I think that's where the internet and having access to images and that type of thing, and then just being able to put a PowerPoint presentation together on your own.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times, I'll get the presentation done and I'll send it to the client. That's one of the things I do is I will send the presentation to the client. A lot of speakers don't do that. A lot of them just say it is, I want you to be surprised. But because I do what I do and I do comedy and I know that clients can be nervous, especially in this day and age, and they want to. So that's kind of my way of A, making them feel like they're involved, but B, making them comfortable. Yeah. And I always said, I don't want you to rewrite this. I don't want you to look at it and say, well, we don't understand slide 7. Nobody laughed at that. And I always say, just trust me, trust me. But a lot of times and I'll say ahead of time, I will send them and I'll just say, half of these slides you are going to look at it and you're going to say, what does this have to do with us? And where's he going with this? And I will say, it'll all make sense when I do it.
Yeah.
So I'm just
part of the
throwing it out there ahead of time. Yeah. But please don't, and then I kind of like that, because then they get a little bit intrigued and they're like, okay, well, if he says so, I guess we'll shut up.
So did you have to explain that to the engineers with the did you see the Body Ventura slide?
No, that was pretty. No, they figured it out. They figured it out in rehearsal. That's where I was going with that.
There's a picture of Jesse the Body Ventura.
Yeah, that was no big deal. But I've said, I will sometimes, I'm doing, one of my visual jokes right now is I'll whoever hired me, I'll get a screen grab of the person who hired me. and I'll say, like, oh, God, this quarantine has really affected people. It's affected everybody, not just mentally, but physically. Like I go, like, here's a picture of Peter, Peter, whoever today, it was today, but we also have a picture of him pre-quarantine, like it was taken in January, and I'll throw up a shot of like Brad Pitt or something like that, and just go, whoa, what happened? And again, it's not mean-spirited at all, and it's personalized, and nobody laughs harder than the guy whose picture it was, because now he's a part of the show.
Yeah, and that they'll remember that, actually.
Exactly, they will remember that, and that's what I like. That's what I want people to leave my show just remembering and just saying that was good. We needed that.
Yep. So, how do people get in touch with you?
Well, believe it or not, it is again, I couldn't do what I do without the internet.
Yeah.
So, my website is Greg Schwem, GregSchwem.com. And that's where you can see all my business, my corporate videos and all the live stuff that I've done. And, I don't even know if you have any chance to plug my side project, where I've got a side project called the Comedian Crashes Your Pad. .com, which is
I like that.
a bit on hiatus. It's on hiatus a little bit right now because we haven't been able to travel.
Can't travel.
I started a web TV series where while I'm on the road doing gigs, I stay at home share properties. I find interesting, unique home share properties in the towns that I'm performing in, and I will stay there for a night and then film the experience. I will film my interactions with the host, and I seek out very kind of quirky, offbeat properties or interesting people who own them. I mean, I've stayed in a tree house. This is the night before I've done a show.
Yeah.
I usually don't tell the client.
I just stayed in the tree house.
I stay in the hotel the night before I do the show, but maybe 2 nights before the show, I stay in the tree house. I've stayed in an RV and Airstreams and a yacht in Fort Lauderdale, and with all sorts of farm animals you can name, and I've loved every one of them, and I've loved the people that I've met, and I can't wait to get out there and start staying in places. Yeah.
I only have one negative experience.
Well, in the home share thing?
Yeah, I did the Airbnb, and I was in Central California. And it was more of a ranch, and they had llamas and all that, and they were super friendly. And the grandpa of the house, I'm like, I got to get up. I have an appointment at 9, so I'm going to get up around 8. And they're like, oh, great. Well, I go to my room, and I get an email saying, hey, we can't meet at 9. Can we meet at 11? And I'm like, so I email her back, yeah, no problem, So I'm like, cool, I get to sleep in. It's like 8:15. The old man comes to the door. He's like, hey, I didn't want you to miss your appointment at 9. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, what? I kind of forgot where I was at. And I'm like, he said, you had an appointment at 9. You said you're waking up at 8. It's like 8:15. And I'm like, I got an email. It got pushed back, so I'm just going to sleep in a little bit. Oh, okay. Well, let us know. We'll make you breakfast and all that. I'm like, oh my God, just get out.
Okay, I would not call that a negative experience, Peter. I would call that a very caring, attentive host. A negative experience is a llama broke into your room.
Well, now I would look just the opposite. That would be cool.
5 stars. You're communing with nature. I've experienced this slightly worse than a guy waking me up a couple hours early. But the places I've shot about 35 episodes in 35 different places in 3 foreign countries, and I can count on on one hand the number of that I would consider to be a negative experience. Although I'm pretty I'm also pretty tolerant too, and that comes from years working comedy clubs and staying in places that you wouldn't put your dog.
Yeah, I was going to say it's all relative, right?
Yeah.
Because there's some hotels. My wife's like, "You stayed there," and I'm like, "Oh, compared to the place I was over there, whew.
Right.
This place was a gem."
Exactly. I know as we get a little older, our tastes get a little more refined, but I'm still fine with just a pillow and any place. It doesn't really bother me.
Yeah, I'm more into as long as I feel like it's clean. It doesn't have to be clean, but I want it to feel like it's clean.
And that's a huge thing now. That is going to be that's going to be what everybody is looking out for as we try and claw our way out of this crisis. I think is, is the place clean? Are you sure? How do I know? And
I don't think we've seen the end of all the bankruptcies and all that. I mean, we're starting to hear them now. J. Crew and Pier 1 and
not just retail, but Hertz. How did Hertz file? Other than the fact that they're too expensive, how did Hertz file for bankruptcy?
With $1 billion in cash.
One. What's that?
They had $1 billion in cash and they filed bankruptcy.
Yeah. I mean, Hertz got all the great spots at the airport.
I don't think that the COVID put them out of business. I think it was the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, because I know Pier 1 wasn't doing well before, and a lot of retail places, because that's kind of my industry, they were not doing well. And I have stores that are going to go out of business because of it, but they weren't doing well before. So
right, exactly. But I'd never heard that Hertz was on thin ice.
It's all relative. I mean, I don't know. Sears,
but I think
Penny's.
On that note, and you asked about it. I mean, if I could give myself just a little bit of a plug here, I do think that my business will, once we start traveling again, and even in the virtual space that I've been doing, I think people want to laugh more than ever now.
Absolutely.
I have found that I have done very well when we've had crisis situations. I mean, I did well after 9/11. I did well enough after the market meltdown of 08-09 of the crash. I think people, they do turn to humor to get them through tough times.
Totally
and
agree.
That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for. And I look forward to getting back out there, and I look forward to making anybody laugh, whether you're a business or whether you're a comedy club or a cruise ship or whatever. All those places I've worked. And I can't wait to get back out there and start doing it again.
Well, and just to kind of follow up with how to contact, I mean, you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, you're on LinkedIn, Instagram, and then you have your YouTube page, which is very cool. So, and I'll put all the links on.
I'm very social. I would say most of where I mostly live is YouTube and LinkedIn. LinkedIn just because of what I do, because I am more business focused. I tend to troll LinkedIn a lot more. Plus, it's just nice. It remains pretty much the only social network out there where people aren't angry at one another all the time.
Yeah, totally agree.
I applaud them for that. For somehow keeping that off. You don't go on LinkedIn to bitch about stuff. And I'm amazed. I mean, every now and then you get that. But usually, if you do, you get called out really quickly.
Yeah,
so,
and
like go over to Twitter.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like I only post stuff on Twitter now. I try not to read Twitter because it gets you into a dark K-hole real quick.
It really does. So we're in the dark enough place right now without all of that. So YouTube and LinkedIn is kind of where I live and where I enjoy living.
Well, I appreciate the time that you've given, and hopefully, if you ever get out to LA and you have more, a day trip.
Yeah. I was supposed to be there in May. I was supposed to be doing a show up in the Burbank area, a private date for a power company, like the Southern California Public Power Association or something like that. What I was supposed to do, and they COVID took that one too. So I don't know if they're going to reschedule it. Hopefully they will. And I always love every chance I get out to Southern California, whether it's LA or San Diego. I love the trips I take out there. I always enjoy the audiences. I can't wait to get back out.
I got a question for you. I just thought of it when you said that. Like, if you were to come to Burbank, do you ever go to the Comedy Store? Do you ever go watch other comics, or are you just like, no?
I actually did do a set at Flappers in Burbank.
Okay,
about a year ago. But the only reason I did it is because I was trying to get in with a booker, and they said we don't need corporate footage. I need to see some current corporate footage. I just don't really do comedy clubs anymore. So I went to Flappers and I did like an 8-minute set just to have it. just to record it. So, but no, I don't really hang out in comedy clubs. I was really never a comedy club hangout guy. I mean, when I was doing clubs and, you know, if there was somebody really big performing that I thought, you know, I heard really good things about, I might pop in. But that's just never been me. I've never been a guy. When I first started out in Florida, in West Palm Beach, Florida, there was a great club that opened up called the Comedy Corner. And that was about 5 minutes from my apartment. That I did hang out at. That's what got me in stand-up, is going there every night. And the comics became my friends.
Yeah.
And, that was different, though. That was when I was 22. And now I just don't. And it's not that I don't want to. It's just that it's just not my.
No, I was just curious. I mean, you know, I've talked to some actors that don't, and musicians that don't like listening to music or whatever because they just can't turn it off.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. Maybe that's right. And I find even being around a lot of comedians sometimes, like I went to my best friend in New York, a comedian, he was having a birthday party. I flew to New York just for it. It was at a pool hall, because that's his big hobby. He plays pool. So he had it at this pool hall down in the West Village. And it was all comedians. And I had to leave after about an hour, because, you know, I'd forgotten that, you know, when you get a bunch of comedians around, they're all trying out material.
Yeah.
You know, they're all, and the next day I said to my buddy, I go, were we like that 20 years ago? I go, we probably were.
Yep. I
probably was, you know? So I can't fault them, but at the same time, it's just like, enough. Can't we just play pool? You know? We're just here to play pool. Can't we just do that? Do we have to always be trying our next big bit out and making it sound like we're not trying it out? Because it's really easy to tell. My wife knows when I'm trying material on her.
See, that's what I was interested in.
Yeah, she always knows.
I think that's interesting that
mm-hmm.
just to hear, you know, I guess but that's why you probably like your corporate gig too, because it gets you into different fields without necessarily having.
Absolutely. And I'm not competing. You know, I'm not the fifth of 9 guys on the bill. Right. It's just me. It's just me. And maybe that sounds selfish, but so what?
No.
I like being just, I'm entitled to say that.
Yeah, okay.
And I just like being the speaker, as opposed to, the fourth guy was kind of funny. And not having to look at the person before me going, oh, it's his material. You know, he's killing the crowd, or he just did a joke that I kind of do a joke like that. And now should I do that joke, or do I have to reference him before that? You know, those are just not things I have to worry about. And I like that. Comedians have enough problems. We have enough issues we have to deal with without having to worry about what was said before us, right before we walked on stage.
Totally agree. And I've seen that a lot at the local places, because they're like, oh, great, I get a follow drop in by Judd Apatow. Ah, great.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I feel bad for people like that. You know, you're all set, and then there's a comedian. Unfortunately, he just passed away. A guy named Vic Henley, very funny guy, Southern guy, lived in New York. It was great, and that was a great hook right there. He lived in New York City, but he was from Alabama, and he told a great story about years ago being all set to go to Catch a Rising Star on the Upper West Side, and Roseanne Barr walks in at the height of her powers,
right,
at the height of her fame, and does and she goes on right before him and really doesn't have much to say. She's just kind of riffing.
Yep.
And does about 40 minutes and then gets off. And he said he goes up and the audience, he said, we're still looking behind them, because she'd exited from the showroom into the bar, and everybody was looking at the bar, and he's doing joke, doesn't work, and finally said something like, well, hey, you know, I may not have my own TV show, but at least I ain't no fat bitch. And the audience cracked up, and the loudest laugh came from her.
From Roseanne, yeah.
In the other room. And he said after that he could do no wrong. You know?
He got him back.
He got him back, yeah. But I'm like, wow, what a nightmare to have to follow that. Like the guy that had to follow the Beatles in the end. So remember, there's an old story about there's some guy that had to follow the Beatles.
It's like, really?
And the Ed Sullivan Show, yeah.
Anybody but them.
Yeah.
that time frame.
Right.
Well, hey, but I appreciate the time, and I don't want to eat up too much more of your clock.
Oh, no, I could talk all day. Thank you very much. This is fun. That's what I love about podcasts. You just never know where they're going to go. And it's always fun to talk to people about, like yourself, about a variety of different subjects. And I enjoy every one that I do.
It's like I said, it's been one of the, and to be honest with you, a lot of my friends were like, hey, are your bosses upset or, concerned? I'm like, well, they shouldn't be. I had my best year ever last year in sales.
Yeah, right. As long as you do what, it's funny because I told you I came from Florida, and I was a television news reporter. I was on TV as a broadcast journalist, and the first guy, I had two news directors, and the first guy was okay with it. We kind of agreed. We had some rules, just don't be a jerk up there, and don't be, real foul mouth. You are even though, you still are sort of representing the TV station.
Sure.
Now then he left, and the second guy came in, and he actually said to me, he goes, if I was here before you would not be doing that.
Wow.
He goes, but you were here first. So it was kind of the same thing, but I thought it was interesting that he admitted that. That he wasn't, it was clearly he was his way of saying, I'm not comfortable with your side view. We still got along very well, but it just was, it was different.
Yeah. And I don't know, especially with today's times and with the technology we have, it's easier to have a side job or a side hustle or a side hobby. I mean, I could be fishing. I could be learning how to team rope or ride horses or doing whatever.
Right.
I just choose to talk to people from around the country and have fun with them.
Around the world. Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, the technology makes that possible.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I try and explain to my kids, use technology. And like, I was just having the talk, like you were talking about LinkedIn. And I just had that talk with both my daughters and then my daughter's boyfriend who just graduated. I said, get on LinkedIn. I go, it's not Facebook. It's not Snapchat. It's not TikTok. Yeah. It's business people.
Yeah. It is it's TikTok when you're 13.
Yeah.
Not when you're growing up and you're in the corporate world. That's what I told my daughter too. And I said, you're not going to get a job people are on Facebook. I go, no one in the corporate world cares they might care what your Facebook profile is because they want to see what you're posting, but for the most part, I go, if you want to get hired, you're not going to get hired on Instagram.
Correct. And that's the advent of technology is you would have never, even 20 years ago, said, oh, you're going to have a basically a free radio program that's going to reach 80 plus countries and tens of thousands of listeners out of your house.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
What do you think?
You don't have to get a degree from broadcasting school, and you don't have to.
Right, exactly.
It's crazy.
Absolutely.
Joe Rogan just signed. Did you hear about his new contract?
$100 million. Yeah.
$100 million Spotify deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and all he needs is a microphone.
Yeah. He's got a little bit more than that.
That's true. Yeah, maybe two microphones.
Yeah. Well, hey, like I said, if you ever get a chance and you have some time,
Absolutely. I'd love to meet up with you in person.
That'd be great.
All these podcasts I do, man, it's like, what do these people look like? I actually finally FaceTimed with a guy that I did a podcast with who lives on a boat in Australia. So we just did audio, we podcast, but then he wanted to have some follow-ups, and I'm like, well, why are we, I go, you live on a boat, let me see the boat. So I was FaceTiming him from my patio last night, so he saw my patio, and I saw his boat.
I had one guest. I don't even know how to get on his boat. He's got like a 70-foot yacht. And the yacht has a rock wall built into the side of it, so when you stop and you fall off the rock wall, you fall in the ocean.
There you go. That was one of my pad crash episodes. I stayed on a 70-foot yacht in Fort Lauderdale. So it was a hoot. It was owned by a married gay couple, and they were just the nicest guys. And we and that was another reason that I picked them, was it was just more than staying on a 70-foot yacht. Sure, that's nice. But we talked about gay marriage and the kind of people that they wanted to have as guests and the kind of people they didn't want to have as guests.
Sure.
And it became a very interesting conversation and got very much more in depth than I thought it would, and that was wonderful.
Yeah.
So
that's how I feel about my
podcast.
podcast.
The kind of stuff that I seek out on the episodes that I do. More than just, I want you to be more than just somebody who rents out your home. I want you to have a good story to tell too.
A Comedian Crashes Your Pad is the place to check out.
.com.
.com.
Yes.
I'll put all the links on my website too. So
please, I appreciate that.
All right, buddy. Hey, I appreciate the time.
Man. Peter, thank you so much. Let's get out there and start traveling again. Start selling Western wear. Start telling jokes. Let's do it all. Okay.
Let's get it done.
All right, man. All right. Take care.
Thanks, Greg. Bye-bye.
All right. We'll see you.